Is your speaker on?
Oh, and we're hearing Rita.
Yeah.
Can they hear me? Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. So glad that you're here with us today, in person and online. During the month of November, we have been exploring the theme of holding history. We've looked at the different ways our stories can be told, and how that can sometimes change the way we view our history, or even the way we view ourselves. Today, we are examining our traditional celebration of Thanksgiving, because we know that the American origin tale that we tell about the first Thanksgiving is not the whole story. How can we hold multiple histories at the same time? So I invite you this morning into our time of worship. Ground yourself on this good earth. Take a deep breath, yes, even with the mask on. If you have a burden today, I invite you to set it down for this hour of worship as our chalice is lit. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Katie Gelfand, The Abundance of Our Lives Together. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity, in the authentic and gentle manner of our connections. We cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us. Will you join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation this morning? In the days ahead, many of us will gather with family and friends, people whom we may have long and complicated relationships with. It helps to prepare. And so, dear Spirit, great mystery that has blessed us with life, help us to feel grateful. We give thanks in this moment for lungs that breathe in and out, for hearts that beat, for bodies that work. We give thanks for this coming holiday gathering, however and with whomever we will spend it. We give thanks to be alive, to be able to mark the day in whatever way we choose. We give thanks for family, for friends, for those who gather around us in body or in spirit, in flesh or in memory. We give thanks for all those people who came before, who, flawed and damaged though they were, loved us into being, shaped us into who we are now. We remember with gratitude. We give thanks for mothers and fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers who did their best. We give thanks for wacky uncles and rebellious aunts, for rambunctious cousins and unexpected guests. We give thanks for long car rides, dashes through airports, endless rounds of Monopoly. We give thanks for the awkward conversations, the strained pause, even the slammed door. We give thanks for disagreements that forced us to grow and move and evolve. We give thanks for all of it. All of it. For all these wild and hungry people, our family, our friends, our congregation, people just as flawed as we are, all dealing with more than we can see, all part of a larger whole, every last one of us doing our best. We give thanks for the glory of being alive. Amen. Our opening hymn this morning is Come Ye Thankful People Come. We don't have the words on the slides today, but if you have it memorized like some of us do, please feel free to think in your mind. If you're at home, you can mute and sing along. And if you'd like to, if you're here, you can hum softly.
Come, ye thankful people, come, raise a song of harvest home, fruit and crops are gathered in, safe before the storms begin. God, our Maker, will provide.
It's time to take our offering. Our November offerings will be split with Veterans Inc. It's one way to show our gratitude for those who have served our country and who too often receive little support after turning their lives upside down and going into harm's way. Please give as generously as you're able to support both our UU ministry and the nonprofit Veterans Inc. as we enjoy our offertory this morning.
Thanksgiving as a Day of Mourning by Mike Johnson. In 1617, a few years before English settlers landed, an epidemic began to spread through the area that became southern New England. It likely came from British fishermen who'd been fishing off the coast for decades. By 1620, 90 to 96% of the population had died. It decimated the tribes and left many of their villages empty. One of those villages was Patuxet. When the English settlers arrived in Plymouth Harbor, they found a cleared village with fields recently planted in corn. This was a big part of the reason they chose it for their settlement. All of the village's people had died from the epidemic, except for Tisquantum, whom we know as Squanto. We never really hear the whole story about Squanto. We hear he taught the settlers how to plant corn and fish and hunt the local area. But how was it that he spoke English? Here's the story as told by James W. Lowen. As a boy, along with 4 Penobscots, he was probably stolen by a British captain in about 1605 and taken to England. And there he probably spent 9 years. 2 in the employ of a Plymouth merchant who later helped him arrange a passage back to Massachusetts. He was to enjoy home life for less than a year. In 1614, a British slave raider seized him and 24 fellow Indians and sold them into slavery in Malaga, Spain. Squanto escaped from slavery, made his way back to England, and in 1619 talked a ship captain into taking him along as a guide on his next trip to Cape Cod. Squanto walked to his home village only to make the horrifying discovery that he was the sole member of his village still alive, as the others had all perished in the epidemic 2 years before. Perhaps this was why Tisquantum was willing to help the Plymouth colony, which had settled in his people's village. Or perhaps he was there to keep an eye on them. The settlers, too, lost half their people during the first hard winter. There were only 53 settlers who survived until the harvest festival that was later declared to be the first Thanksgiving. It was a brief moment of tentative peace. 1 generation later, the English settlers and the Wampanoag were at war. For many Native people in our time, the day called Thanksgiving has become a day of mourning for the hundreds of years of losses suffered by their people.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. I don't wanna know about evil, I only wanna know about love. You know it's getting harder to listen, and harder just to use my eyes, and all around the gold is glistening, making sure it keeps us hypnotized. I don't wanna know about evil, I only wanna know about love. I don't wanna know about evil, I only wanna know about love. I'm waiting for the plains to crumble, and waiting for the towns to fall. I'm waiting for the cities to crumble, waiting till I see you crawl. I don't wanna know about evil, I only wanna know about love. I don't wanna know about evil, I only wanna know about love. I don't wanna know about evil, I only wanna know about love. Beasts shall walk softly through these rooms, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Every creature, every being, every object holds its history within it. geology, minerals and gases dissolved in water, air laden with moisture, plants, animals, people. Process theology says our history shapes our destiny by constricting or expanding our choices. When we go to the doctor, they will not begin to treat us without taking our history. And not just our history, but that of our parents and grandparents. As we fill out the pages of our medical past and our current complaints, what our bodies have been exposed to and what they have survived, it does us no good to pretend that certain ailments have not beset us, to deny the full truth of what brought us to this moment. Few problems have ever been solved by ignoring them. Looking beneath the history of one's country, she goes on, is like learning that alcoholism or depression runs in one's family, or that suicide has occurred more often than might have been usual, or with the advances in medical genetics, discovering that one has inherited the markers of a BRCA mutation for breast cancer. You don't ball up in a corner with guilt or shame over these discoveries. You don't, if you're wise, forbid any mention of them. Quite the opposite. You educate yourself. You talk to people who've been through it and to specialists who have researched it. You learn the consequences and obstacles, the options and treatment. You may pray over it or meditate over it. And then you take precautions to protect yourself and succeeding generations and work to ensure that these things, whatever they are, don't happen again. It's uncomfortable to lift the rug of history and to learn that what you thought about history is not true, whether it's about your own health and stamina, or whether it's about the way your country runs, or whether it's about the way the whole project began. In fact, some stories can make us feel guilty. You know, when you hear about what happened to the natives in this country, it can make us feel a little guilty, even though we weren't there, even though we didn't do it. Maybe what we're experiencing is just the discomfort of those things having happened and being done by people who we have grown up to admire. The rug of silence and silencing covers deep pain for many, many people. Sometimes it's hard for us to imagine what the impact of the white American Thanksgiving myth has been on those whose ancestors experienced those events in a much different way. Isabel Call, in her article, A Thanks-Grieving Reflection, offers a metaphor that's been helpful to me. She says, I want to tell you about my bicycle. The frame is a sparkly kind of blue, and it has pink handlebar tape. And guess what color the wheels are? Lime green. I love my bicycle. Now suppose it was your bicycle, and suppose one day you biked to school and totally forgot to lock your bike when you got there. And then when it was time to leave, you went outside to get on your bike and no bike. It was stolen. All right, so you had to get a ride home and figure out how to get to school from now on. And then in art class the next week, someone brings in a sculpture of a turkey they've made. It has a sparkly blue body made of pieces of metal, a big round tail with a lime green circle around it, and pink feet curving underneath it, and a bicycle seat for a head. In fact, the whole thing is made from a bicycle, and you realize it's your bicycle. Your former, stolen, cut up into pieces bicycle. But before you can say anything, your classmates are cheering, and the principal decides to make the sculpture the new school mascot. And she institutes a new school holiday called Turkey Creativity Day. And every year from now on, everybody gets to spend a whole day making art. Now, nothing against creativity, but this is kind of a nightmare. And nothing against gratitude, but the legacy of Thanksgiving is a nightmare. The 400-year-old story we've heard about harmony between people of different backgrounds just isn't true. By omitting the rest of the story, Thanksgiving's story has become a feel-good story for some and feel-bad history for others. James Lowen, the author of Lies My Teacher Told Me, says the antidote to feel-good history is not feel-bad history, but honest and inclusive history. In this same book, he tells the story of Frank James, a Wampanoag Indian who was selected to deliver a speech in celebration of the 350th anniversary of the Pilgrims' arrival. The Massachusetts Department of Commerce arranged the celebration and demanded that before he speak, James show them a copy of his speech. Here's what they read. Today is a time of celebration for you, but it is not a time of celebrating for me. It is with heavy heart that I look back upon what happened to my people. The Pilgrims had hardly explored the shores of Cape Cod 4 days before they had robbed the graves of my ancestors and stolen their corn, wheat, and beans. Massasoit, the great leader of the Wampanoag, knew these facts. Yet he and his people welcomed and befriended the settlers. Little did he know that before 50 years were to pass, the Wampanoags and other Indians living near the settlers would be killed by their guns or dead from diseases that we caught from them. Although our way of life is almost gone and our language is almost extinct, we, the Wampanoags, still walk the lands of Massachusetts. What has happened cannot be changed, but today we work toward a better America, more Indian America, where people and nature once again are important. At that 350th celebration, which was in 1970, James was not allowed to give this message. Perhaps that is one reason that the United American Indians of New England instituted a national day of mourning every fourth Thursday in November since 1970, and look forward to a day when their mourning and our celebration can begin to be held in one ceremony. This may be uncomfortable to hear as we're preparing for our Thanksgiving festivities. We celebrate Thanksgiving because gratitude's essential to human life, but grief is also essential. It's essential for healing our history of violence. It's really hard to be thankful and sorrowful at the same time. But this is life. Sometimes joy and sorrow come together. The point is not to feel bad about our history, but rather to tell our history in an honest and inclusive way. What if we widen the circle of our Thanksgiving celebrations to include sorrow along with the joy? What if, as we go around the table, naming what we're grateful for this year, we were to express gratitude that we are coming to know and understand the rest of the story of Thanksgiving? What if we teach our children and grandchildren that knowing a wider understanding of history can offer paths to healing and reconciliation and a better future? What if we share with them this vision of a better America? An America even a little bit more Indian or indigenous? A country where people and nature, as Joseph said, can once again be important. And so it may feel awkward, but please celebrate this Thanksgiving. Celebrate the fact that we're beginning to tell our history in an honest and inclusive way. Because only by telling an honest and inclusive history can we have an honest and inclusive present. That honesty and inclusivity is indeed a reason to give thanks. Amen. Aho, and blessed be. Before we conclude, a couple of announcements. We are still taking feedback, and since we change things from week to week, multiple feedbacks are helpful. So there is a feedback form online, give your perspective, a link there, and it will be up for several weeks. So if you have something, this week was easier, this week was harder to hear, whatever it might be, please continue to give us feedback, it helps us. And today, RE begins outdoors at 1 o'clock on our property. All ages are welcome, including teens. Dress for the outdoors. Parents are welcome too. After 10 minutes, parents will be invited into the parish hall for meet and greet with warm beverages. And I checked the weather. No rain is supposed to fall till sundown, kind of like Camelot. And so today I leave you with these words. For those who embrace Thanksgiving as a day to honor the gifts of family, friendship, and abundance, we celebrate you with you and join our voices to hold aloft all sacred blessings. For those who hold Thanksgiving as a day of sadness, who mourn for the hurt and loss of Native peoples, for those who are lonely, for those who grieve the loss of those dear and beloved, we hold your heartache and sorrow so you do not have to carry the burden alone. For all of us, may we be truly grateful for those things that are true and good and even uncomfortable or painful, for they are the path to healing and greater abundance. Blessings be upon you. I believe we have a recorded, oh,